fully grow with the empowered the military industrial complex, and US and the countries of European Union. And again, as soon as Russia push the world, I mean, they push the world manipulating from inside, using think tanks, using their narratives, propaganda. So as soon as they push the world to this kind of peace negotiations, that means that the whole world will again will grow. So this military industrial complex will again decrease their empowering. I'm talking about the manufacturers. And Russia never follow their words. I mean, there is no any reasons to believe that peace mean peace. For them, peace mean a break where they have some time to get necessary connections, to bring back some economical corporations, and to empower their own military industrial complex. So this is my point regarding peace negotiations. And a few more things I would like to emphasize is that Western society, I mean Europe, I mean America together, and I'm quite in close relations. All the war, I used to be quite a lot in Washington with officials, with people from Congress, with militaries, as well as from Ukrainian side and American side. I consider them to be a bit too naive regarding their implementing of Russia into Western community, using their think tanks, using mainly creating their think tanks. It doesn't mean that it's created by Russian people. Yes, of course, it's been created by hired ex-officials, like top managers, as ex-politicians, and they are very accurately, step by step, seeding their agenda. So this is another one dangerous thing that I think Western society is a bit too naive about. Another thing, it's Russian opposition. Like, I personally don't believe in Russian opposition. I still think it's a bit one more step of seeding Russian propaganda, Russian agenda. Some of them, it's still projects of local regime. Another things which is not so obvious, for example, that already for now during the war, Russia already sent and transferred into Europe, to different countries, approximately 30,000 mercenaries, so who are not looks like it. They looks like refugees, they looks like victim of regimes, they looks like sometimes not even Russian people. That's what I've heard from our militaries, and now Europe should think about upcoming risk for their political and for their political life and for their stability. So I'm pretty sure, because all these groups were implemented for destabilization in some certain need moment in different European countries.
Thank you, Irina. It's very good to hear from you being on the ground. Let me introduce myself. Most of you know me, or you've heard me speak. I do write a weekly newsletter called Barbershop Whispers Russia. My sources come from inside Russia, family, government officials, as well as outside of Russia. I try to focus on the business aspects of what's happening geopolitically, domestically, and abroad. My bread and butter is the acquisition of Russian assets in the West that are impaired by OFAC or impaired by sanctions. And I am also working on a couple of Western exits out of Russia. My last piece of Barbershop Whispers, I talked about the enablers of Russia. Those enablers, the apex enabler of the, well, let me back up a little bit. There are two types of enablers here. You've got the corporate enablers that help Russia continue the war, and then you have the sovereign enablers. I've written about both. last piece was about the sovereign enablers. And the apex enabler is China. Without China, Russia could not continue this war. China provides Russia with technology. 80%, 88% of the chips, microchips that are imported by Russia come out of China. And then you have many that come out of Central Asia as well. China provides Russia with liquidity, buying the oil. Same thing that China is doing with Iran. I've got another piece called the Alliance of the Aggrieved, which includes Iran, Russia, and North Korea. And Russia has really created that and has cemented the alliance with these three countries for its own interest. That is material to get armament from North Korea with a wink and a nod from China. North Korea could not provide that armament to Russia without China's approval. And Putin would not be able to do that without Chairman Xi's approval. So the apex in all of these enablers, it is China. Question for me is why? Why does China really do this? She is very ambitious. He wants China to be the dominant global economic power. He's not going to be able to do that with China and Iran and North Korea in tow. He needs the G7 dominant economy, global economy. He needs the trade with the US. He needs the trade with the EU, particularly now in a time that the Chinese economy is quite fragile. I'm sure that Xi was disappointed with Russia's performance in Ukraine, and that gave him pause. I think he's also watching to see how the West responds to Ukraine. Does the West have the political will, and what is the military bandwidth of the West? He's looking at this, watching this as he considers the reunification of Taiwan. Iran, 90% of Iran's oil is sold to China. I can understand that from an economic standpoint. China's thirsty for energy as they try to grow the economy. And North Korea, the midget there is I think a wart to China. He doesn't know what to do with it. That's what I wrote about in Barbershop Whispers about the enablers. These enablers have created a parallel economy that really is based on sanctioned economies. Russia's learning a lot from Iran, so you've got a lot of knowledge transfer in sanctions evasion coming out of Iran to Russia. You have technology transfers, military technology transfers, going from Russia to Iran. Just outside of Kazan, the Russians are manufacturing Iranian drones, and they're improving these Iranian drones. So that those improvements go back to Iran. It's a fragile economy. It's a parallel economy. I don't believe that it really does much harm is it a real challenge to the global economy? I don't think so. You have the opportunists also as enablers, which are India, Brazil, UAE. Their motivation is purely financial. They are exploiting the arbitrage opportunity and enhancing their economy with these new trade routes, both physical trade routes and financial trade routes, where they're able to set up support services, such as underwriting of insurance for ships. A lot of that's being done out of the UAE, and it's being done out of India as well. The weaknesses to this alliance of the aggrieved, while they are able to set up new payment systems and settle in national currencies, those national currencies, take the yuan, does not have the liquidity and depth that the euro has or that the dollar has. So they do have limitations. And these countries are also they're not governed by rule of law. They're governed by autocrats who, depending on how they feel that day, could change their mind about anything. That's it. That's a summary of the enablers and the alliance of the aggrieved. So, you have any questions? I'm open. Irina, you have any questions for her as well? That concludes my my piece.
Thinking over. I mean, digesting your idea, your information.
Yes. So, my background is I spent 18 years in Russia, and I am still very much involved in Russian activities as well as Central Asia. I spent some time in Tajikistan and other parts of Central Asia and the Caucasus.
Do you feel? But now you live in US, yeah?
Yes.
Do you feel that Western society is very, very naive regarding the strategic planning of Russia and regarding their understanding of their mentality? Or I'm mistaken in this statement?
I think the Western politicians have not made a compelling business case to their constituents as to why Ukraine matters. For the Baltics and the East Europeans, like the Poles, it's very clear. And for the Ukrainians, it's existence. But for Bobby Joe Lunchbucket in Iowa, or even Miguel in Spain, or Enzo in Italy, to a large degree, they are looking at, I need to feed my family, I need to send my kids to school. How is this war in Ukraine impacting me directly? To some degree, it's also similar to what Putin is doing with the Russians. He has tried to insulate Russian society from the war. You've got more body bags coming back from the Ukrainian front than what the Soviet Union lost in the Afghan war, almost twice as many. But yet, it's not really resonating. You do have some protests, but not like what you would have had, I believe, in Soviet times. So to answer your question, are they naive? To some degree, yes. But I think it's more about what does it mean to me and my family at the dinner table and sending the kids to school. I think a lot of Americans don't understand how lucky they are and how much they have benefited from the global economy. And I don't believe they fully appreciate the power of the United States. And what the president says, those words have meaning. Putin will hear one thing when Trump or Biden says something, and the meaning of what they're saying may be very different, may be directed towards domestic consumption as opposed to international. So those are places where it will be exploited.
I would clarify a bit what I mean by naive. I mean, it's not, I think that it's not just going about, we're not talking about Russian-Ukrainian war. We're talking about generally Russian strategy. Like 10 years ago, I used to work in Bell Pottinger Privé. It's in Great Britain company, Lord Timothy Bell, you remember. And I would say that 80%, if not 90%, of our orders worldwide, starting from COPE in Venezuela, something in Moldova, some political actions, then a lot of issues in Africa, in Afghanistan. It was orders of Gazprom, of Babakov personally. I mean, I guess for now I can tell this information as it already doesn't exist, the company, and unfortunately Lord Timothy Bell is not alive anymore. So I'm telling that when we talk about our war and Russian strategy, we mean also destabilizing of political situation inside America itself. We're talking about destabilizing of political situation and economical situation in Europe. We're talking about like why in the beginning of the war France changed their rhetorics, like, oh, we're now ready to send you our military unit, let's do something. Why it happens? Because Russian Wagners, they just kicked out from Africa, from everywhere, France and France influence. That's why I mean, when France felt physically and economically very much what does it mean, the war, and when some dictatorship feel the taste of blood and the taste of power, and they feel the weakness of Western society, they take it as weakness. So Western mentality that is more civilized, they take as weakness, unfortunately, because dictatorships, they understand only the language of power. That's what I'm telling about. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, it would be too long now to give argumentation and improvements that destabilization, political destabilization in America, it's a bit also caused by Russians. They are not talking only about Ukrainian-Russian war. Sometimes they are just destabilizing society from inside and political society from inside, using different groups of people, different opinion leaders.
Yeah, the active measures disinformation is quite formidable. These operations that Russia conducts, also in Latin America, I did a piece on that. The Russian footprint in Latin America. It's not so much an economic footprint, but more a footprint of disinformation in which they have proxy media companies there in Latin America that cross-feed the official media companies, like in Mexico and in Bolivia. Alexander Dugin, if you really want to see something interesting, is watch Alexander Dugin do an interview in Spanish and in Portuguese. He's quite good. He's quite fluent. So to your point, Irina, yeah, there is a lot of naivety, I believe, particularly with Western politicians as to...
We're going to pull this in 3-4 minutes back to the main room. Just be ready. And I'd love to do a deep dive on each one of these. And just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
So, colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is okay. Well, Adam and Irina, thank you for your briefing. My name is Alexei. I'm from Ukraine. Some of my relatives and friends are fighting right now, so I'm a bit biased. I apologize for this. And Adam, if I may just make some small correction, you said that losses of Russia in this war is double of that in Afghan war. Well, in fact, total losses of Soviet Union in Afghan were 15,000 people. Right now, if we believe official Ukrainian statistics, total losses of Russia in Ukraine is over 500,000. So it's 30 times that of Afghan. Just for the record again.
Thank you, Alex.
My question, yeah. So my question, if I may, again, being in contact with my relatives, my friends, with my colleagues in Ukraine, I feel pretty strong fatigue. By a majority of people, I should say, there is a small minority who is willing to fight until the very end, but majority is feeling like, if you wish, France or Hungary or pre-Second World War. So basically ready to give up. That's my concern, honestly speaking. I'm just quite concerned that majority of my countrymen will just say we've had enough, and we don't want no more, and that may be enhanced if we lose support of Western powers and funding. As you may know, you probably very well know, basically 80% of non-military budget of Ukraine is funded by Western powers. 80%, can you just imagine this? So basically, the country is bankrupt. And if some politicians somewhere decide to reduce it or cut it or make it more difficult, which is what we experienced earlier this year, it's going to be catastrophic for pensioners, for medical care, for everything. Yeah. So again, apologies for my kind of emotions a little bit, but my question is, do you feel this is coming? And if this comes, then is Ukraine going to repeat the history of Western and Eastern Europe before the Second World War, and military forces of Russia will just roll over it like easy land and go further? Do you feel that concern, or?
Alexei, I do feel that concern, and I think it is a tragedy. The delays in providing armament to Ukraine was a huge mistake. And going back to what Hamlet had said, the